Millionaire shocked by a little beggar's shout urging to cancel deadly deal. The night air was sharp and cold, slicing through the glass towers of downtown New York like a blade. Inside the gleaming office on the 45th floor, James Carter stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his breath fogging the glass for a brief moment. The city below thrummed with life, honking taxis, chattering crowds, the distant wail of sirens, unaware of the storm gathering in this sleek, steel and marble fortress. James was a man carved from iron, his reputation ruthless, his mind a razor's edge that cut through doubts and second guesses. Tonight, he was moments away from sealing a colossal deal, a deal that would crush his competition and shift power across the entire industry. It was perfect, unstoppable, like the ticking heartbeat echoing through his chest. His gaze flicked down to the street where thick groups of people bustled under flickering lampposts. Then, a sudden, piercing shout. "Rip it. Don't do it. You're killing everything." The voice was raw, urgent, too loud to ignore. James's eyes snapped down. There, standing defiantly in the middle of the busy sidewalk, was a small figure, a child no older than 8. His clothes were ragged, smeared with dirt and too thin for the cold, but his eyes burned with a fierce, impossible courage. The filthy kid shouted again, louder this time, arms flailing like he could hold back the tide with his bare hands. "Please, you don't know. This deal will destroy more than you think." People around glanced uneasy, whispers rising like a tide. Some shocked, some irritated, others curious. A woman muttered, "Who lets kids run wild like that?" A businessman tugged his collar and sneered, "Just a crazy street kid." But James felt the weight settle in his gut, a sharp jab of unease twisting through his usual calm. Could it be? Was the child's desperate cry just nonsense? A trick of the powerless? Or was it a warning, wrapped in dirt and fear? He moved closer to the window, watching the kid stare straight up at him. No flicker of fear. His voice cracked but didn't break as he shouted, "Cancel it. It's a disaster waiting to explode. You have to stop." The crowd began to part, a growing bubble of quiet surrounding the child. James's heart hammered, a tightness squeezing his chest. His mind spun, torn between his plan and this strange, raw truth staring back at him. He thought of years climbing to this throne, of all he'd sacrificed, all the deals crushed beneath his will. And now, suddenly, everything felt fragile, like a twisted glass ornament ready to shatter. The city lights blurred behind his eyes. His fingers trembled lightly on the window frame. Deep, cold doubts flooded in, clawing at the certainty he always held. The boy in the street was gone from sight for a moment, swallowed by the crowd. But the sound of his voice echoed inside James like a ghost. Was he a messenger? A madman? Or something else? James's jaw tightened. Then, without a second thought, he turned sharply, eyes burning with fierce resolve. Downstairs, outside, answers waited in the cold night, and he was going to find them. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. James threw open the door and dropped down the stairs, 2 at a time, heart pounding like a drum in his ears. The cold hit him hard as he spilled out onto the sidewalk, the street lamps flickering above like tired eyes. People stared, frozen mid-step. The kid was gone. Just as James scanned the crowd with sharp, searching eyes, a sick, heavy silence fell, so sudden it squeezed the air right from his lungs. Then came the scream, a woman's voice, sharp and broken. James spun around. By the curb lay the child, the same ragged boy, sprawled on the pavement, skin pale under the harsh glow of the streetlight. Blood oozed slow and thick from a deep gash across his temple. His small hand clutched a crumpled scrap of paper, trembling and stained. The street around them rippled with shock and chaos. People gawked, whispered. No one moved. James stopped dead. His throat tightened. The world narrowed to the boy's burning eyes, half lost, glaring up at him, as if begging for something beyond words. And then James saw it. The inked words on the paper. They weren't just warnings. They were instructions, with his name scrawled in jagged letters at the bottom. His chest seized. His knees felt soft. His hands shakier than he wanted to admit. This wasn't random. This wasn't just a street kid shouting nonsense. This was a message for him, from somewhere buried deep in his past. The crowd edged back, murmurs swelling like a rising tide. Is he hurt bad? A man whispered. Call an ambulance, a woman shouted, panic rising. James knelt beside the boy, voice low, urgent. Who did this? What did they want you to say? The boy's breath hitched. He coughed, a ragged sound that cut through the noise. Your deal, he gasped. It's a trap. James's mind spun. The deal that had consumed him for years, the one he was ready to crown his empire with, was a trap. How? Why? Before he could ask more, a heavy hand gripped his shoulder from behind. Mr. Carter. He froze. Slowly, James turned. The face staring back was cold and familiar. Laura, his sister, dead for 10 years. But there she was, alive, standing in a sleek black coat, eyes shining with something he hadn't seen in a decade, something dark and raw. You shouldn't be here, she said, voice like a blade. James recoiled, heart pounding again, this time with disbelief, fear, and something worse. Betrayal. How are you? He stammered. Laura's lips twisted in a bitter smile. You never really knew me, or what I did. The crowd gasped, eyes darting between them like a live wire. James's breath caught in his throat as Laura stepped closer, whispering, "This city, your empire, it's built on lies, James. And the kid, he wasn't trying to save you. He was warning everyone else." A shiver ran through the street, an electric charge pulsing from that sentence. James looked down at the boy again, his own name sprawled across a page held by a dying messenger. And a ghost from the past, his sister, standing there like proof that everything he believed was a lie. The night suddenly felt colder, darker, and James didn't know if he'd find answers or if what was waiting would destroy him completely. His world had just shattered, and there was no turning back. James's breath hitched. The crowd shifted, uneasy whispers swirling like smoke. Laura's eyes bore into him, cold and sharp, a knife twisting in an old wound. His heart pounded madly. The boy on the ground, bleeding, fragile as a broken toy, stared up with pleading eyes. The streetlights flickered, casting jagged shadows, and the city held its breath. Then, without warning, the boy gasped, his fingers twitching as he clutched that crumpled scrap of paper tighter. "James!" His voice cracked, weak but deadly serious. "You're not who you think you are." The words dropped like a bomb. Everyone paused, the murmur dying into a tense silence. James's jaw clenched. What nonsense was this? His mind raced, trying to steady, to push it aside. But the boy's gaze was steady, sharp, piercing past all the walls James had built. Before James could respond, Laura stepped forward, her voice low, cutting through the quiet. "He's right." Shock slammed into James like a freight train. Laura, a ghost risen, nodded toward the boy. "The truth you've been chasing? It's the wrong story." "What are you saying?" James's voice cracked open, unsteady for the first time in years. "Who are you really? What have you done?" Laura's smile was bitter, laced with something desperate. "I'm the reason you climb so high, and the reason everything's about to come crashing down." The crowd held their breath, and then, without any warning, a harsh, metallic clink echoed from under the boy's trembling hand. He pulled back the paper, and out slipped a tiny key. A cold key. Small, dark, heavy in James's palm when it was thrust at him. "Look inside," the boy rasped. "Your real past, locked away." Before James could ask how, why, a sudden roar tore through the street. A car screeched to a halt nearby, its tires shrieking against the asphalt. A heavy-set man burst through the crowd, face pale, eyes wide with panic. "Stop!" he gasped, locking onto James. "You don't understand. You've been lied to your whole damn life. I'm the one who should be standing here, not him." James frowned, stunned, as the man lunged forward, yanking at his coat. In the scuffle, another scrap of paper fell from the man's pocket, the same jagged handwriting. James grabbed it, his whole world tilting as he read 3 words scrawled in dark ink. "He is you." The street fell into chaos. Gasps drowned out as James's mind twisted uncontrollably. "What? How?" The boy's eyes locked with James's, their pain mirrored, their truths shattered. Laura leaned in, her voice a dark whisper, dripping with finality. You aren't just the ruthless titan you believe yourself to be. You're the boy, James. The child you thought was a stranger on the street? That's you. Lost, forgotten, erased. A scream bubbled in James's throat, raw and sharp, and then silence, thick and suffocating. Smoke from a nearby hot dog stand drifted lazily, blending with the cold night air. The city's relentless noise seemed miles away now, swallowed by this shattering new reality. He staggered back, the key heavy in his hand, the papers burning like ice against his skin. The past, the empire, the deal, the sister, the boy, all tangled in the cruelest trick life could play. Who was the real James Carter? And, more terrifying, who would he become now? The crowd closed in, eyes wide, breaths held tight. James's knees trembled, his heartbeat thundered, and the night had only just begun. James's legs quaked, his breath ragged, like he'd run 1,000 miles. The key burned cold in his palm. The crowd's hushed whispers sliced the night, a fragile thread stretched tight and ready to snap. Laura's voice lingered, sharp as a blade. You're the boy, James. The child you thought a stranger is you. He blinked, trying to shove the madness away. But before he could speak, before his mind could even catch up, the streetlights cut out. Instantly, the world dropped into pitch black. A heavy hush swallowed the city sounds. The crowd gasped, stumbled, murmurs rising into panic. Power's out! What the hell? James's heart slammed against his ribs. Darkness felt like a chokehold, cold and suffocating. Then, slicing through the quiet, a low, evil chuckle. Slow, deep, gut-wrenching. It came from nowhere, and everywhere. The crowd froze. Faces turned, searching, terrified. James's pulse thudded louder than sirens. He strained to find the source, but the dark swallowed every hint. Then, a flash of light tore across the alley beside them. A figure stepped forward. Tall, lean, face hidden under a hood. But James felt something familiar. A stinging, unbearable twist in his gut. A voice, one only he could hear, whispered in the dark. Hello, James. The crowd hissed, retreating. James took an instinctive step back, muscles trembling. Ooh. No one you thought you knew, the voice purred. The truth is far worse. The figure pulled back a glove slowly, revealed a hand, stitched, scarred over, a patchwork of taut flesh and metal. James's breath hitched. No, he murmured. It can't be. Did you think you were the lost boy, the forgotten child? That's part of the lie. The street trembled with words that pecked at his sanity. You're not James Carter. You never have been. The crowd's unease twisted into stunned silence. Murmurs died under the weight of the words. The silhouette circled James, voice carrying like smoke curling in the air. You're a ghost, an experiment, a copy, a shadow made real. James's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, key slipping from his fingers, clattering cold on the pavement. The boy gasped weakly beside him, eyes wide and flickering. "You're a clone," the figure said, voice soft now, cruel. James's chest crushed beneath the shock, his mind shattered into shards. "How? Why?" The figure reached out, pulling back the hood. The face was the same, James's face. But twisted, broken, hollowed eyes burning with hatred. The crowd recoiled, gasping. Laura stepped back, her shock raw, human. "I'm you?" James whispered. "No," the other answered, voice dripping venom. "I'm what you were made to replace." The street felt like it collapsed beneath the terrible truth. The boy whispered again, words fragile but sharp. "You were never one soul. You were made to be many." Lightning cracked overhead. A distant siren wailed like a scream. James's knees trembled harder. The man who should be him leaned closer, eyes cruel and burning. "Your empire is built on lies. Your past, engineered. Your sister, a cover story." James swallowed hard. His world, every memory, every fight, every victory, was a haunted lie. He looked at Laura. Her eyes burned with betrayal. He looked at the boy, fading fast, but fighting to stay alive. And then the clone smiled, cold and final. "And now, it's time to decide which of us gets to live. The real or the shadow?" The crowd shrank back, breathing, catching, night thick with fear. James's heart thundered, and somewhere, deep inside, a flicker of hope whispered, if he wasn't real, maybe there was still a chance to take back everything. But the question screamed louder. Who was the real James Carter? And which one would survive the night? James's breath hitched. The clone's cold smile twisted into something darker, sharper. A knife stabbing straight through the fragile air between them. The crowd recoiled, frozen in shock, whispers crashing over one another like broken waves. Laura's eyes flashed, wide with raw, unsettled fear. The boy on the ground gasped again, clutching his side, pale and fading. James barely processed it. The weight of the moment, crashing down like a thunderclap. Then, a sudden thunderous boom tore across the street. Glass shattered. Tires screeched. Metal screamed as a black SUV slammed into the curb with brutal force, sending a cloud of dust and fire biting into the cold night. The crowd scattered chaotically, screams piercing the air. James stumbled back, heart pounding so hard it threatened to burst free from his chest. From the wreckage, a figure stumbled forward, limping, soaking. Laura. Her face was a mask of pain, twisting with shock, eyes wild as she collapsed against the pavement. But before she could say anything, she gasped out a single word, trembling, almost a whisper. "James." The crowd froze, their panic swallowed in a stunned hush. James rushed to her side, hands shaking as he gripped her arm. "Laura, what happened? Who did this?" She coughed, eyes flickering with a terrible secret. They knew you'd be here." Her voice broke, but the words came sharp, urgent. "Not just the twin, the real king, the one who made us all prisoners." James's head spun. The clone's face twisted in rage. But before he could speak, Laura's eyes locked onto James, fierce and desperate. "There's another." James blinked, heart hammering like a drum stuck in fast forward. "Another?" he asked, voice raw, barely holding steady. Laura swallowed hard, grimacing against the searing pain. "Yes." She coughed again, blood wetting her lips. "3, not 2. The crowd shifted. A low murmur rose, confused, fearful. James's mind raced. 3? How? A cold chill sliced through him. The clone snarled, moving closer like a predator. But before tension could snap, the streetlights flickered back on. The harsh glare revealed a third figure stepping out of the shadows. Tall, and then silent. Face covered by a tilted hat pulled low over sharp eyes. James's breath caught. The figure paused, hands in pockets, eyes scanning the crowd. And then, slowly, deliberately, they pulled back the shadow hiding their face, revealing James's own face, but younger, cleaner, untouched by scars or doubt. The crowd gasped, voices rising in shock. James stared, frozen, his chest tightened with a cruel twist. The third James, smiling softly, eyes calm, stepped forward and spoke, voice steady and clear. "You've been chasing shadows, but I'm the one who started this game, the original." The crowd retracted, as if struck. James's knees buckled. The key fell to the ground. "Original?" he whispered. The new figure nodded, with a slow, chilling calm. "I'm the real James Carter, the one who made the deal. The Empire. The lies you were fed? They were tools, cover stories." Laura twisted in pain beside James, her whispered voice raw. "All of you, they're versions, copies, experiments." James looked from his clone to this new man, his original self, and back down at the dying boy. His world shattered, cracked, and then dissolved. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath him, not just physically, but inside. The Empire, the deal, the identity. Everything he thought was true was a lie, built on lies. But here was the truth. 3 Jameses, and none of them fully real. The boy coughed, blood bubbling at his lips. "You're all shadows of the same mistake," he rasped. "Only one can live. But the real battle has only just begun." The crowd fell to silence again, the cold night air heavy as thunder rolled in the distance. James's breath hitched. His hands trembled. and the question screamed louder than ever. Who was the original? Who was the copy? Who was the ghost? And most terrifying of all, what did it mean for the man who called himself James Carter? Because now, nothing was certain, and everything was about to explode. The rain started. First a soft pattering on the pavement, then a sudden, sharp drumming. Drops hammered the street like tiny fists, splattering on the broken glass, turning the chaos slick and cold. James blinked, drenched, heart banging in his ears. 3 versions of himself. 3 broken mirrors reflecting nightmares he didn't understand. The boy coughed, blood wet on cracked lips, eyes burning with some last fiery truth. The crowd pressed closer, a living wall of fear and confusion. Then, without warning, the air shifted. A sudden crack, like a whip, snapped. The ground beneath them trembled. A deep rumble clawed up from below, tearing at the city's bones. People cried out, backs twisting, searching for escape. The pavement cracked wide near James's feet, jagged and yawning like a raw wound in the street. But then, a sound no one expected. Laughter, harsh, brittle, echoing through the night like a broken record skipping on its last groove. James spun, heart lurching, eyes scanning for the source. The crowd scattered, some fleeing, others frozen mid-step. Out from the shadow of a dumpster stepped a woman, young, fierce, soaked to the skin. Her dark hair clung to her face, but her eyes, those eyes burned with something wild and unhinged. "Enough," she said, voice sharp and cold. The 3 Jameses, Laura, even the fading boy, all stared, stunned silence swallowing the street. "Who?" James started. She cut him off with a cold smile. "You think you're the puzzle? The twisted game everyone's chasing? You're nothing but a start." She crouched slowly, reaching under her coat. From a hidden pocket, she pulled out a small device, a worn flash drive, blinking ominously. "Everything you've torn yourselves apart over. It's just a fraction." Tension thickened, jaws clenched. The air hung so thick it nearly drowned the night sounds. The woman stepped forward, voice low and deadly serious. "You're not clones, not copies, not even the real ones." A beat. The rain hammered harder now. James's throat dried out. His knees shook. "We're ideas," she said, voice like ice. "I'm the architect." Her hand shook as she held it out, the flash drive gleaming like a black heart. The crowd gasped. Laura's face paled. The boy wheezed weakly, eyes wide as if he'd just lost his last breath of hope. James's voice broke, raw and trembling. "Architect of what?" She smiled. "A cruel, terrible thing. Of you all. Of this nightmare. You were never flesh and bone. You're simulations, programs in a system older than you can grasp." Shock hit harder than any blow. The clone's face twisted in disbelief. The original's calm mask cracked at the edges. And James, real or not, felt the floor shift under him. Once again, none of this is real. The empire, the deal, even the pain. You're running on someone else's code, she said. A sharp cry sliced through. What? Murmured a voice behind. Laura's eyes locked on the woman, terror spilling out. No, James whispered, hands trembling. That can't be. But it is, she said, and I hold the power to end the simulation, or rewrite it. Cold silence followed, heavy, suffocating. Then, before anyone could move, the flashing lights of approaching sirens blasted through the wet night. But it wasn't the cops. From the shadows, figures in black tactical gear poured into the street, guns raised and voices shouting commands. The woman's smile twisted into a snarl. You have no idea what you've stepped into. James stared down at the flash drive. It pulsed faintly against his palm, like a beating heart. The boy coughed again, thin voice barely there. We're trapped in a loop, a test, a lie designed to break us. Everything spun dizzyingly in James's mind. Locked in a simulation? A program? A nightmare replayed like a virus? The crowd gasped, some sobbing quietly, others shaking heads, as the stakes suddenly lifted far beyond their imaginations. James looked at Laura, then his clone, then the original. All of them shadows, all of them prisoners. His breath caught. He swallowed hard. The woman pointed the flash drive directly at the cluster of tactical agents. This ends now. And then, a deafening blast ripped through the night. The world exploded into light and sound. And in that searing, impossible moment, James felt himself vanish. Or maybe awake. The blast ripped through the night, like a furious storm breaking loose. James's ears rang. His chest convulsed with a sharp burst of pain, and then a crushing silence. The world spun, collapsing into a black hole that swallowed everything whole. When his eyes flickered open, the chaos was gone. The street was empty. The crowd vanished. The rain stopped, like someone had pressed pause on the storm. But the air was thick, dead still. James tried to move. His limbs were heavy, numb, or worse, like they weren't his. He staggered, catching himself on a street lamp, heart hammering, breath shallow and ragged. Then he saw it. The boy. But the boy wasn't dying anymore. He was smiling, wide, bright, alive, like he'd just been given a second chance. James, the boy whispered, not weak now, but clear, urgent. James blinked hard, stunned. The crumpled paper, the key, they were gone. The boy's eyes glowed with something fierce. Wake up, he said. James felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. Before he could ask, before his brain could catch up, the world twisted. Light bent and folded like waves. The street stretched out, then snapped tight. Shapes around him melted and flickered. Then it wasn't the city anymore. It was nothing. A vast, empty room filled with floating fragments, flashes of memories, pieces of faces, shards of places James never knew, but felt deep inside like old scars. And in the middle, the woman from before, cold, sharp, the one with the flash drive, stood watching, eyes like burning coals. "She's the architect," the boy said softly, stepping closer. James stumbled back, heart ripping out. And then, with a sudden crack, the woman turned her gaze to James. Not anger, not cruelty, something else. Recognition. "Did you really think you were running a game of shadows and copies?" she asked quietly. "You are the broken code, the glitch." James's breath caught. What does that mean?" Her smile was a razor's edge. "You're not just inside a simulation. You are the simulation." The boy's smile faded. He looked at James with a painful tenderness. "James, you're the virus." James's head spun. "Virus?" "Yes," the woman said, stepping forward as the empty space around them rippled. "An error in the system that threatens the whole thing. The reason the clones fractured. The reason the originals doubt reality. The reason the architect loses control." James stumbled, a lump stuck in his throat. The boy collapsed to his knees, coughing, the blood now clean, but his eyes dimmer. The woman held up the flash drive. "This isn't just code. It's everything. Everything rewritten, destroyed, rewritten." James's hand shook as she pressed the device into his chest. A jolt shot through him, ice and fire. He saw flashes of endless loops, repeated moments, faces smiling and screaming. And then, the greatest terror sank in. He wasn't the victim. He was the disease. The woman's voice softened, almost a whisper now. "There is only one way forward. But the question isn't who survives. It's, can the virus be healed?" James's breath hitched. His knees buckled. The room around him faded. The last thing he saw, the boy's eyes filled with sorrow, and Laura, reaching out, but her hand passed through him like smoke. Then, black. The city, the deal, the boy, the sister, the clones, the originals, all vanished. James fell into nothing. And somewhere, deep inside the dark, one question burned. If he was the virus, then who was the host? And did the host even want him to live? The silence screamed louder than any explosion. And now, this wasn't just a fight for identity. It was a fight for survival itself. James fell into nothingness. The silence was thick, thicker than anything he'd ever known. No breath, no sound, no light. Just emptiness pressing on his chest like a stone. Then, out of nowhere, it snapped. A flash, bright, white, and pure, blinded him. His eyes slammed open. He was somewhere else. No city, no rain, no crowd. Just a cold, sterile room. Walls too smooth, too bright to be real. A single chair faced a plain metal table. James sat, blinking. A voice echoed softly around him. Calm, almost kind. "Welcome back, James." He turned sharply. There was no one. "No, no more riddles," he whispered, voice shaking. "Tell me what's happening." The voice answered, slow and steady. "You've been running in circles. A virus, a glitch, a shadow chasing shadows." But none of that was true. James felt ice grip his spine. "Then what is true?" "Everything you've seen. Your sisters, your clones, the boy, they're fragments. Pieces of a memory, too fragile to hold together." The room shifted. The table melted away. Walls dissolved into flickering images. Faces, places, moments, all jumbled. And then a face appeared. Plain, familiar, terrifying. His own, but younger, smiling softly. The voice spoke again. "You think you were the copy, the fake, the shadow. But what if you were never the virus?" James's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" "The virus is inside you, not because you're broken, because you were built for it." Suddenly, the door slammed open. The boy stepped in, no longer pale or weak. His eyes blazed with something fierce, grateful. "James," he said firmly, "you're not the victim. You aren't lost." James's throat tightened. "Who's behind this? Why am I here?" The boy's gaze dropped, heavy. "This isn't a simulation." "Not really. It's a prison." James shook his head, overwhelmed. "A prison? For what?" Before the boy could answer, the lights cut out again. Darkness swallowed the room whole. And then a slow, chilling laugh echoed. It was Laura's, but not the woman he remembered. This voice was colder, sharper, full of pain and poison. "Did you really think I was your sister?" The words tore through James like a blow. He grasped at the air, heart racing, mind spinning. What? The lights flickered back, and standing there was the true Laura, or so it seemed. Her eyes glowed black. Her smile was cruel. She stepped forward, shedding the coat that hid her. Underneath, her skin was marked, etched with numbers and circuit lines glowing faintly. "I'm not your sister. I'm the lock on your cage. The architect's control. And you are the key." James stumbled back, disbelief crashing over him. The boy's voice was urgent now. "James, what you think is freedom is just the next layer." Suddenly, the walls cracked, cracking open to reveal wires, screens, circuits, a machine vast and endless. James's knees gave out. The room was a core inside something else. A machine that was alive. Laura's cold voice whispered, "You're not human. You were never real. You're the code inside the machine, the virus created to destroy the architect." "But the architect is inside you too." James's head spun. The pieces didn't fit. Or maybe the pieces were the whole nightmare. In a final, shattering moment, The boy's hand reached out, touching James's chest, and beneath the skin, something flickered. A screen of face. Not James, but someone else. Someone watching. Someone controlling. And that face smiled. Ready to play the real game, James? The floor beneath them shuddered. The machine hummed. And everything exploded into chaos again. James gasped, heart hammering. He wasn't the virus. He was the battleground. And the war had only just begun. The floor shook beneath James's feet, the noise crashing around him like a tidal wave. The machine groaned, alive, breathing, humming a low and deadly rhythm. His heart pounded so loud it nearly drowned out the chaos. His breath, shallow and sharp, the screen flickered on his chest, glowing like a heartbeat gone wild. Then, suddenly, everything froze. Time broke. The boy's eyes locked on James, wide and burning with something raw. And then, without warning, the scene shattered like glass. James tumbled backward, face slamming against cold metal. Pain exploded in his skull. His fingers clawed at the ground as the world snapped into chaos again. But this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him lay a woman. No, not a woman. A girl. Pale, trembling, tangled in the wires, crawling across the floor. Her eyes fluttered open, swimming with confusion. "James," she whispered, voice cracked, like a child lost in a nightmare. James's breath hitched. "You?" Her eyes focused slowly. Then a gasp that tore the air. "I'm you!" Broken words. His mind stumbled, staggering through the fog. "No, that can't be," he choked out, voice raw, desperate. The girl's lips curled in a fragile, sad smile. "Not like you, before you, the real one, the start." James's chest tightened, the lump growing so fierce it nearly stopped him. The crowd, or what was left of it, seemed to vanish again. The machine pulsed beneath them, wires humming a deadly song. And then, a voice that was neither hers nor his, but something deeper, darker. "James, meet your original self." The words sliced through the room. The girl shifted and lifted her hands. Her skin peeled back, not flesh underneath. Metal, gears, a face that was both human and machine. Her eyes, his eyes, flickered with cold precision. "I'm you, but what you forgot." James stared, trembling. His knees hit the floor. "No, you're not real. You're a ghost." She smiled, a crack in her perfect face. "Real? That's the lie they told us both." A sudden jolt slammed into James's chest. The screen embedded in his skin morphed. Numbers, images, code spilling fast and loud. Then, an image burned bright. A sterile lab, bright lights, scientists in white coats. And there, a tiny baby, crying. "Alone," the girl whispered, voice breaking. We were made, not born, two halves of one soul, ripped apart. James's breath caught like a punch in the gut. What did they do to us? Divided us. Her voice cracked. Split the virus inside you into two. Me and you. His mind reeled. So, the boy, the sister, the clone, the original, it's all pieces. Her gaze pierced him. None of us are whole. Not real. James's world crumbled again. Then, who's controlling? The woman, the architect. His voice was barely there. She smiled bitterly. That's the worst truth. You are both the virus and the cure, the disease and the doctor. You think you're fighting for survival? You've been fighting yourself all along. James's chest tightened. The room spun, dark and light whirling, until a sudden shattering sound exploded through the silence. Behind them, the wall cracked wide open. Beyond it, a mirror stared back, fractured, reflecting endless versions of James, but none of them him. And then, the reflection twisted, bent inward, eyes glowing red. "It's me," the girl whispered. James gasped. The reflection smiled cruelly, and in a voice not his own, but forever his. "It doesn't matter which James wins, because none of you are free. You're all trapped inside me." Silence swallowed the room. James's heart thundered. The fight wasn't just inside. It was inside him. But if the enemy was part of himself, could he fight at all? The question hung heavy. And then the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. And all James could hear was his own breath, ragged and shaking, echoing in the cage he didn't even know he'd been living in. The air was thick, buzzing like the seconds before a storm breaks. James's chest heaved. His hands shook as he stared down at the fractured mirror, his fractured self, reflected back in 1,000 broken pieces. The girl, the real one, stood steady beside him, eyes sharp but tired. "We're two halves of the same broken whole," she said softly. Her voice cracked like glass. "But this battle, it's never about winning." James blinked, the weight pressing hard in his pit of his stomach. His heart hammered, hot, heavy, afraid. Suddenly, the machine around them groaned, cracking like ice. Wires snapped loose. Screens flickered, then went dark. Silence slammed down, thick, crushing. James's breath hitched. "You're both locked in here," the girl whispered, reaching a trembling hand out. "Together, forever." A tear traced down her cheek, cold as the metal beneath them. "No," James gasped, choking on the word. "There has to be a way out. There must be." Her gaze softened. Maybe the key isn't running, but facing it. All of it. The virus, the code, the pain. He swallowed hard. The lump in his throat grew fierce. The room flickered, blurring edges, melting into a swirling storm of memories and code. Faces flashed. Laura's cruel smile. The boy's last breath. Even the cold stare of the clone. Every bit of agony, every crack in his mind, twisting tighter and tighter. James gritted his teeth, pounding his fists against the cold floor. Pain exploded, raw, sharp. His voice broke through the silence. "I am more than this," he roared. The shards of reflection pulsed, trembling, and then a spark. Light, warm, almost real. The girl smiled faintly, hopeful. The walls trembled again. We fight, not because we're perfect, but because we refuse to die like this. James rose, knees still weak, heart racing faster, faster. The machine shuddered, glass cracking, circuits sparking around them. Then, a blinding flash. The broken pieces pulled toward each other, like magnets, sealing. The mirror's cracks, healing. His reflection steadied, whole for the first time. A voice, the real one, or perhaps a new one, soft, like a breath in the dark. Who we are isn't fixed, but right now we get to choose. James's chest tightened again, but this time hope rose with the pain. Outside the room, the city hummed, alive, waiting. The girl's hand found his, steady, warm. We start together. James's lips curved, fragile but fierce. Together, behind them, somewhere deep in the machine, a soft alarm began to pulse, a reminder. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. And now, listen closely, because this is important. You need to subscribe right now to the channel if you want to catch every exclusive story coming next. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. I mean, come on. Don't let this wild ride end. Flood the comments below with your thoughts, feelings, and wildest theories about how it all ended. I want to see every reaction, every guess. Everyone's voice matters here. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how it all went down. True fans know the real magic happens when we all come together. So, what's your take? Who's the real James? Will he break free, or are we all trapped in his code? Hit subscribe, hit like, comment away, and share like your life depends on it. Because the story, it's far from over. Let's find out what happens next.